And by the way, you're going to see this type of thing going out throughout my story. That book order was actually due on Monday. But my son left his pamphlet in school on Friday. And so he was all upset. And my wife wrote a note to the teacher asking her if he can have an extra day. And she sent a note back, of course, and she made sure to put the pamphlet in his knapsack so that he would have it. Had my son brought that pamphlet home on Friday, I would have done that book order with him on Sunday. And I would have been in my office at 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday morning, September 11th, and somebody else would be standing here telling you a different story because I would have been dead. But because he left that pamphlet in school on Friday, I am here telling you a story today. So I filled out the check, put it into his knapsack, picked up my briefcase, picked up my now cold cup of coffee, and out the door I go. And I get to the World Trade Center at 20 minutes to 9. My office was on the 101st floor. Magnificent view. I looked out over 3 bridges. You could see Kennedy Airport from my office. It was unbelievable. And in order to get up to the 101st floor, you had to take an express elevator from the ground to 78. 78 was an express elevator. 78 was a sky lobby. The only thing on there were elevators and a security desk. So there were about 12 of these large elevators. They must have held like 50 people. They were the fastest elevators in the United States, by the way. There was one that went from the lobby all the way up to 106, which was Windows on the World, and it did it in like 60 seconds. I mean, it was crazy. Your ears used to pop when you used to take that elevator. It was amazing. So I'm standing in the lobby waiting for the first elevator to come down. The first elevator comes down. It's all the way on the right side of the lobby. So I run down to the end of the lobby. I get into the elevator, take it up to 78. When I get off in 78, like I said, it was a sky lobby, floor-to-ceiling windows, a lot of natural light. It was very pretty. The elevator that I needed to get to my office was all the way on the left side of the sky lobby. So I got out of the elevator, I hung a left, and I started walking to that bank of elevators to get to my office. I must have been about 8 feet from that bank of elevators when, as best as I can describe, a bomb had gone off in the elevator. That's what I thought. There was a huge explosion. The lights went out, the place filled with smoke, and I was literally thrown off my feet. And I am not embarrassed to stand here today and tell you I was screaming. I had no idea what had happened, but I had never been so scared in my life. And I heard people yelling, fire in the elevator. And of course there was. There was a bomb in the elevator. That's what I thought. I'm looking around, I don't know what to do. All of a sudden, in between 2 banks of elevators, the large ones, there was a light. Now, the lights had gone out, so I just assumed it was an emergency light. And what did I do? I figured that's probably a safe place to go. But there was a lot of smoke. What do you do? What did we learn? When there's a lot of smoke, you stay low to the ground, right? I literally crawled from where I was to that light. And I stood up, and I'm looking around, and I'm trying to figure out what to do and where to go. I walk behind the bank of elevators, and there's a door. There was a security office there. I had been in that building for 8.5 years. Never knew there was a security office on that floor. The only thing I knew were elevators. So I walk in, I open the door, and sitting on the ground, up against the wall, is this woman's security guard, and she is crying her eyes out. And I leaned over to her, and I said, "Ma'am, calm down. We're gonna be okay. We're going to get out of here." And she calmed down a little bit, and then I went further into the room, and I saw this guy who was trying the phones. They were all dead. He was the fire warden for the floor. And I knew that because he wore this stupid red hat and said fire warden. I knew that because I had the same one because I was the fire warden for my floor. So I ran over to the guy, and I said, "What do we do? Where do we go?" The guy looks at me and goes, "I don't know." Of course he didn't know. We had no idea what had happened. We heard a rumor about a plane, but, we thought maybe a small, Piper, Cessna. Who knew? We didn't know. He's trying the phones. They're dead. I don't know what to do. I go back outside trying to figure out a way to get out, and I bump into a coworker of mine. Her name was Virginia DiChiara. Virginia was an internal auditor, and she had been hired a year before by Cantor Fitzgerald, and the first department she audited was mine. Needless to say, she didn't give me very good marks. She almost got me fired. And there she was. She was in the elevator that I was about to get on when the plane hit, and she described it to me. The walls of the elevator collapsed. The ceiling collapsed. There was a cable in the elevator that snapped, was sparking. The jet fuel came down the sides of the elevator, ignited by the sparks, and there was a wall of fire. The doors had jammed. They started to close, and they jammed about a foot open. There were 3 people in that elevator. There was Roy Bell, Virginia, and a woman by the name of Renee. Roy Bell was the first one to jump through that fire. He suffered 2nd-degree burns. Virginia was the next one out, and she suffered 3rd-degree burns. And Renee died from her burns. That was the difference between life and death that day, at least for these 3 people. That's 6, 8, 10 seconds. That's all it was. I could bump into Virginia, and she's a wreck. She's got 3rd-degree burns up and down her arms. Her hair is singed. Her clothes are burned. And she looks at me and she says to me, "Ari, please help me. I'm in so much pain, and whatever you do, please don't leave me." And I looked at her and I said, "Virginia, I promise I will not leave you, and we will get out of here." Now, I got to be honest with you. Looking back at it, I could have just walked away. I mean, she didn't like me at all right? I was not a big fan of hers either. But here was another human being in trouble, and I did the only thing I knew how to do, and that was to help her. So I brought her into that office, and I sat her down, and I asked her if she wanted something to drink. I gave her she couldn't hold a cup of water. That's how badly her hands were burned. Now, the lucky thing was with her, when she jumped through that fire, she put her hands over her face so that the palms of her hand were not burned, but the back of her hands were very, very severely burned. That's why she couldn't hold it. I had to literally pour the water into her mouth to give her some relief. And I'm looking around, what do we do? Where do we go? Fire warden, he's trying the phones. I don't know. All of a sudden, this woman security guard walks in, and she's holding a 2-way walkie-talkie radio. And I'm thinking to myself, that's help at the other end of that phone, the other end of that radio, there's help. But she was crying like a baby. And I ran over to her. I grabbed her. I said, "Ma'am, you've got a radio. You can get us help. You need to calm down. You need to get on that radio, and you need to get us help now." And she kind of calmed down a little bit, and she was whimpering, and she was going, "We're on 78. We need help." There was so much chatter on that radio, I ultimately realized help was not coming from there. What do? I go back outside, can't find it. I come back inside. All of a sudden, the fire warden turns around and says, "Okay, we can get out. Stairwell on the left." Stairwell on the left. I learned something important that day. When I go into any type of a building today, I always look for these little signs. They're red and white. You know what they say? Exit. I always look for those because I never know when it might save my life, because that day it did. We walked outside, and all of a sudden, I look up. Sure enough, there's an exit sign. Now, I had no idea where the stairs were. On 78, look, our office is 101 to 105. Always took the stairs. Fastest way. I needed the exercise. It was the fastest way up and down in between the floors. So I never bothered waiting for an elevator. On 78, who knew? I had no idea where the stairs were. Guy says, "Stairwell on the left." We walk out. I see the exit sign. We walk around. It was around a bend. Some guy walked ahead of me. There was a door. He opens the door. He goes, "I found it." I'm going, great. I'm going to tell you something else. That stairwell went from 78 all the way down to 1, which was very unusual because most of the staircases in the Trade Center went down 10, 20, 30 flights. Then you'd have to get out, walk around the floor, get into another set of stairs, and keep going down. This one went all the way straight from 78 to 1. How did he know? I have no idea. But somehow, he knew. I look inside, and I see there are lights on in the stairwell. Now, remember, I told you the lights had gone out in the building. I figured they're probably emergency lights. So there was myself, Roy Bell, Virginia, the fire warden. There must have been about 6 or 8 other people with us, security people, etc. And I remember I turned around, and I said, "Does anybody have a flashlight?" Thinking to myself that if the lights go out in the stairwell, it'll be pitch black. Does anybody have a flashlight? And 2 people behind me. "Yeah, we got flashlights." And I was thinking to myself, where did you get a flashlight from, and why are you carrying it? What is this, Monty Hall, let's make a deal? Is that what you're waiting for? I mean, come on. But I didn't care. I said, "Listen, folks, if the lights go out, nobody panic. We will have light." And the next thing I did was I looked down at Virginia's feet. And I said, thank God she's wearing flats. There were high-heeled shoes in that stairwell all the way down. Women had kicked them off to get down as fast as they possibly could. So we started to head down. The fire warden, Roy Bell, myself, and Virginia. I remember the order because the fire warden was leading, and I told Virginia if she needed to fall, if she felt faint and she felt like she was going to fall, she should fall forward, fall on me, and I'll carry her. Of course, Roy Bell was not too happy about that idea because he figured I was going to topple him and we were all going to be dead. I said, don't worry, Roy, we've got it handled. And we started to go down. We got down to the 75th floor when, as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest miracles of the day happened to me, other than the fact that I wasn't killed when the plane hit. My cell phone rang. Now, most people go, so what? Well, back then, we didn't have as many cell towers as we do today. We didn't have as much signal as we have today. And I was in the Trade Center. I'm going to tell you, you could never get signal in the Trade Center. I remember standing in my office on the 101st floor, standing up against my window going, hello, hello, can you hear me now? Remember that commercial, can you hear me now? Trust me, I lived it every single day. So all of a sudden, my phone rings on a day. I'm in the middle of a stairwell, in the middle of a building, never got signal. My phone rings. I picked it up. I went, hello? It was my wife at the other end of that phone. And she was crying, and she was telling me something about a plane going into the building. I had no idea what she was talking about. I said to her, Joyce, I'm on a 75th floor. I'm in a stairwell. I'm on my way down. Now is not a good time. I said, I'll call you when I get out of the building, and I hung up the phone. Roy Bell turns to me. He says to me, oh, my God, you got signal on your phone. Can I use your phone to call my wife? I said, sure. I handed him the phone. He dialed. He hit send. Nothing.